It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
Welcome into a Friday on the Sports Blitz, where I will be eating crow. We're in the Cogswell Motors studios. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter, bringing you the latest in local, state, and national sports. The big news from Wednesday to today is that Alabama got whipped last night.
Yes, they did.
And I have to say, I talked on the show immediately after the game was announced, talking about how I wish it was Ohio State that was going to get the whipping that Alabama was going to hand out, and how the very first day I remember saying, hey, you could have given me, you could have asked for 21 points, and I would have still taken Alabama to win this game.
Oklahoma,
but
21. As
the weeks went on, I did say yesterday that the 17, man, just looking at it on paper, 17 was a lot of points, and I would have taken Oklahoma with the points. Absolutely did not expect Oklahoma to win the game outright.
Oh, maybe you should have taken those points. You may not even been here today. You may have been sitting on the beach somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd have had enough money to put down to actually win anything. And I was like, I got $5 out of the deal. So.
But yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about this a lot later on. But I will say this. I want to make this clear at the top of the show. Based on what I saw, I don't think the excuse that Alabama didn't want to be there, I just don't think that applies here. I know a lot of people are going there this morning. I've heard on a lot of shows, a lot of networks, people saying that Oklahoma just wanted it more. And maybe Oklahoma did, but I don't think it was a case of a disappointed Alabama team not showing up. If you heard Nick Saban before the game in an interview talking about how they still have a chance to prove they're the best team in the country, and A.J. McCarron took it even further. He referred to some Vegas odds who would still have Alabama favored over both Auburn and Florida State, and they still had a chance to prove they were the best team. No question Alabama showed up to play. That was confirmed when they walked down the field and scored with ease early in the game against Oklahoma. I just think they hit Oklahoma in the mouth. Oklahoma responded quickly, and Alabama didn't know what to do, and the Sooners took it.
I wanted to talk about a couple of things about that game. For one, what was the biggest, today's CrossFit Russellville poll question deals with the game last night. What was the biggest factor you believe led to the Sooners win? Because I've got a little bit of a different thought than, like Weldon pointed out, there are going to be some people who say, oh, well, Alabama wasn't ready for the game. They weren't as fired up. And as you said in pre-show prep, that first series, they throw a couple passes and just get all the way down the field, score a touchdown just immediately. We were thinking, wow, this is about to be a beatdown. Yeah. And then Oklahoma responded. And every time Alabama came down and scored or made some sort of play, you have to give Oklahoma credit. Every time Alabama made some sort of run at them. Even to the last touchdown that Alabama had, the Derrick Henry screen pass sort of thing, or the swing pass, it was one of those things where, all right, Alabama's down 7, they're going to get the ball back, they're going to win this game. And then they couldn't get the ball back until it was just a minute left in the game, and then the first play, Oklahoma made a play. So it was just every time you expected Alabama to do their Alabama thing, Oklahoma responded with a big play of their own. And I've got a couple thoughts on why they did that. And really it all centers around, to me, a perfect game plan. And it talks to, it speaks of a bigger issue that I know you wanted to point out, and that is, what do you do to beat Alabama? And I really wanted to look at how this may affect the University of Arkansas as far as the philosophy goes.
And so, Mark, what that tells me, what it should tell you at home is we got a lot of stuff we want to hit. Mark just outlined about 3 or 4 bullet points that I can't wait to dive into.
Yeah, and then the Texas coaching search. Because that's just another angle, another domino that comes from this game, because Weldon made the point before the show that, and I'm stealing every one of his points right here, that, Nick Saban, he may have been Texas's number one target, and he may have felt like I've done everything I can do at Alabama. He may still feel that way. But as far as last night's game goes, he can. You remember what happened a couple of years ago? They beat Michigan State 49-7 after losing. I guess it was to Cam Newton.
Yeah.
And by himself. And then they decided it's just like he decided, all right, I'm not losing again. And then they lost to LSU a couple in the regular season, but they won 2 national championships in a row. So it's just like it turned the switch for him. Instead of I'm feeling a little bored here. It was I'm just going to turn up the heat and we're going to come back and be better than ever. Will that loss last night turn Nick Saban back into the freak that he was? Did he ever change? Will he change at all? Or will he say, you know what, we lose games at Alabama and it's the end of the world. I want to start over at Texas and I'll show you what I can do at the University of Texas. So
yeah, I really think there's a point there, Mark, because I think the fire, if it were sort of dying out a little bit, I think it was reignited based on what happened last night. Because when you look at the challenge, Alabama's defense, they didn't just get beat; they got flat out exposed. They looked like a A&M or Duke defense. That's what Oklahoma had them looking like. And I just think it makes Nick Saban go back to the drawing board and sort of reinvent the way he looks at defensive football. And I don't want to get into too much of this now because I will later, but there's a whole philosophical change in the game of football. We know teams are going spread. We know teams are going up tempo. Alabama's defense, they're not built to stop that from a physical standpoint. Alabama, they have 300-pound interior defensive linemen, 280-pound defensive ends. You look at their linebackers going somewhere around 235, 240, just south of 250. It's a different game, and we'll see how Nick Saban makes the adjustment.
Well, we've got plenty, like I said, to hit today because it's just all this one game had so many angles to it. And I wonder if Coach Brett Bielema watched that game and said, okay, well, we've seen the last 2 games how you beat Alabama. And like you mentioned, the things that Alabama has done to get to where they are, people are starting to use that against them. And it's worked the last 2 games.
I know what Bielema was thinking. I can already tell you. Oklahoma ran that witchcraft offense. That's not American.
It's not real American
football. It's not real
American
football. That witchcraft sorcery offense will be none of it.
I know Brad Caldwell tweeted last night, I wonder why Nick Saban has been so outspoken against spread offenses.
Well, there you go.
The last 2 teams to beat you, and really the last 3 teams to beat you have done the hurry up. Now they haven't necessarily done the exact same thing, but they've made your guys uncomfortable. Your big like you said, your big 240-pound linebackers and 280-pound defensive ends.
Yeah,
it's a little harder for them to get up and do this all over again 10 seconds from now.
And you talk about those big defensive ends getting after the quarterback, because if you're seeing teams who are going to spread, they'll run like Auburn, but a lot of them will drop back and throw too, kind of like A&M, kind of like Oklahoma. And those big guys are built to run fit. And they're not built necessarily to get upfield and get after the quarterback. So now you have time to throw. Secondary gets exposed a little bit. It just all works together. Trevor
Knight, 348 yards and 4 touchdowns. The guy threw 5 touchdown passes the entire season. He threw 4 last night. A.J. McCarron, 19 of 30 for 387 yards and 2 touchdowns. Threw a couple of the best passes I've ever seen him throw. That long touchdown, I think it was to White, if I'm not mistaken, right down the middle of the field, just threw a beautiful pass. You can't throw a better pass than that for a touchdown. And he made a couple bad throws. He got sacked for the fumble that lost the game. And we've argued about that before the show, but I don't think that one was his fault at all. But one of the interceptions was a bad one. He played a pretty decent game for the fact that he got sacked 6 or 7 times on the game. But Trevor Knight, 348 yards and 4 touchdowns, just really out of nowhere. He had an 84 QBR. If you look at that in the NFL, they put the QBR rating 50 is average. Okay, so if you're at 50, you're just an average quarterback. A.J. McCarron, 50 last night. 85, I think it was above 75 is an elite level, and an 85 or above is like Hall of Fame level. Mm-hmm. And Trevor Knight had an 84 last night. Now I know it's a season thing, and if he was at 85 for a season, that's just ridiculous. Right. 84 for one game, he had a heck of a game.
Well, I mean, Trevor Knight, big time performance, and one thing I think we forget about Knight is he was someone who had relatively high expectations coming into the year. He was even drawing Johnny Manziel comparisons. Now, obviously, those were premature, but just from an athletic standpoint and ability to throw the football, expectations were high. During the season, he gets hurt a couple of times, hurts his knee, hurts his non-throwing shoulder, never really could get into any sort of a rhythm. Now you have bowl prep. You get a few weeks off to not only get better mentally and understanding the passing game, but you also have a chance to get healthy. So it was a surprising performance, no question about it. But I think Trevor Knight showed you that he's closer to being that guy than the mediocre guy he was during the regular season when he was banged up.
Alabama outpassed and outrushed Oklahoma last night. 516 total yards to 429. They passed for 387 to Oklahoma's 348.
Turnovers.
And they rushed for 129 to Oklahoma's 81. But the difference, 5 turnovers to 1.
Yeah.
Two interceptions and a fumble for A.J. McCarron, the fumble from T.J. Yeldon, which I think was just it was a fluke, but it was also kind of ridiculous because as you look back, you think, man, that T.J. Yeldon dude fumbles quite often, and he's been sacked several times. And then Derrick Henry comes in. It's a pretty good problem to have there when you can bring in the all-time leading high school rusher ever. We just looked at his high school stats. Senior year, 4,000 rushing yards and 55 touchdowns one season. Derrick Henry senior year. He comes in, rushes for 100 yards on 12 carries, catches one pass for 67 yards and a touchdown. Just a freak. But those turnovers did Alabama in.
Well, Derrick Henry is going to be a problem for people the next 2 years. That's really all I have to say about him right now. He is going to be a problem. But, going back to A.J. McCarron, Mark, is, he's a guy who, he's going to take a lot of heat. And I just thought Alabama offensively in the second half, they didn't do him a lot of justice. I think Doug Nussmeier is one of the better coordinators in the country. I hate to question him, but, just looking at being down by a couple of scores, still early in the second half, or at least early enough to be able to stay balanced, mix in the running game. I just thought they put him in positions. Your offensive line is struggling. Oklahoma's pinning their ears back up front. They're not even playing run. They're getting after the quarterback. You got to help your tackle. You got to help your quarterback by running the football. And then when you do throw it, make sure it's a 3-step type throw. Get it out of his hands quickly. Get him in some kind of rhythm. And then that will cool off the pass rush. They'll have to respect the quick pass. They'll have to respect the run. And then maybe you can drop back and throw some things vertically. I didn't think the game plan, the play calling helped McCarron and the offensive line in the second half.
I'll go a step further and say that I think the play calling got him beat. Yes, McCarron made some mistakes. Yes, they turned the ball over 5 times. But you put yourself when you're Alabama, you put yourself in such tough situations, and it's worked out for them in the past before, like against LSU when they came out, and everybody in the country is expecting Alabama to just run, and
right.
McCarron throws for 300 yards, and where did that come from? He was just throwing it all over the yard. But when you come out and you're in Alabama, who they didn't have a problem running the ball, they were just running it down their throat at will. Obviously, they threw for 380 yards too. But when you come out and you throw on first down so often and it's incomplete, man, you put yourself into a possession to where it's often 3 passes. And Alabama being the way they are, they need to really start with the run. And then, I'm not saying they need to every single time run on first down, but there were so many times they'd come out there and it'd be a tough pass on first down and it's incomplete. And you're like, well, how's this possession going to go? They get 3 yards on second down with the run, and it's 3rd and 7. They got to throw again. So, he put them in some rough situations, in my opinion, where I would have liked to have seen him run on first down and then kind of open things up on second down.
I agree with you. I think you brought up a great point. I think you touched on something that I would probably consider the difference in the entire game. And it's 3rd down. I'm talking both sides of the ball because Oklahoma, they knew they could not afford to get in 3rd and long and have to face Nick Saban's exotic nickel blitz package. I thought they did a great job, especially early in the game, of staying in manageable 3rd downs. They made sure they didn't get in 3rd and 8 plus. They stayed in something in which they were unpredictable on 3rd down. You didn't know if they were going to run or pass. And on the flip side, Alabama's offense, they became very predictable on 3rd down because when you don't get anything done on first down, when you get a minimal gain on second down, now all of a sudden you're very predictable on 3rd down. Alabama's offense, it's normally not a high-flying offense, but one thing they are, and they're efficient. That's one thing they normally are, and they weren't able to do that because they were constantly in 3rd and long situations. They were predictable. That's something they're normally not. I think 3rd down for both sides of the ball was the difference in the game. I really do.
Ed Woods says the answer to the CrossFit Russellville poll question, the biggest factor was turnovers. 5 turnovers to 1. It'll get you every time. You turn the ball over that often against a team that, I have to give Oklahoma credit. And after this break, I definitely want to do a better job of giving Oklahoma credit. My family that's in Oklahoma right now, if they're listening right now, they're probably not real happy with the way we've just talked about how Alabama lost the game and not Oklahoma winning the game, because I do want to say what I think won Oklahoma the game, how they did what they did last night to Alabama, because I do think that it was about one specific thing that Oklahoma did that it was revolutionary to me. I say revolutionary. It was that's probably a little strong. It was gutsy, and I want to talk about that right after the break.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peters Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peters Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville. Online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
It's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KRK4 today.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
We've got local sports, we've got NFL, we've got coaching search information, and we've got recruiting news. Arkansas got a couple of players playing in high school all-star games this week. One of them yesterday. We'll talk about Rafe Peavy's performance here in just a little bit, but I wanted to give credit where credit is due as far as the Oklahoma-Alabama game last night in the Sugar Bowl. I said that I was going to do this. My thought, and then I said this in the pre-show prep, it seemed like Oklahoma came out with nothing to lose, and it seems like every time that, aside from the USC beatdown where they just got crushed, every time they're expected to just get whipped, they come out and play with just no holds barred, nothing against them, just kill the other team. I don't know how Bob Stoops does it motivation-wise, but I remember the national championship game against Florida State, 13-2. Florida State's got the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in Chris Winkie. They've got Peter Warrick. They've got an offense that scored 0 points in the entire game. It was a safety that scored Florida State's points. You see this game against Alabama. You see, game after game where big game Bob, so to speak, comes out when they've got nothing to lose. I wanted to give a whole lot of credit to that game plan that Oklahoma put together that said, all right, we know that Alabama thinks that we're going to have to run it at them, that we know that they think we're not going to be able to throw because our quarterback's only thrown 5 touchdowns in the whole year. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to get him in space. We're going to make him throw the ball quite a bit, and then we're going to put guys on the edges and try to attack them the way that we've seen it be successful. And it was just a brilliant offensive game plan from Oklahoma. Now the defense was good enough to win the game, but I have to give Bob Stoops and that staff a whole lot of credit for the game plan that they had coming in against Alabama.
Well, I'm going to look at it from both sides. I'm going to stick with you and give Oklahoma credit first and foremost because, look, Bob Stoops, we know about what he's done in huge games recently. We know about the criticism. We know about his SEC comments, and so obviously that adds to the pressure. But in terms of what they did, I was a little bit disappointed in Alabama. I'm sorry, but I have to go with Alabama disappointment. Here's why. Nick Saban and his staff normally do a terrific job during bowl prep of doing what I call self-scouting. When you look at the film of yourself and you understand what your tendencies are, what your weaknesses are, and once you understand that, you're able to account for them and make sure you don't get beat because you know your opponent is going to see those 12 games worth of film and they're going to try to expose those weaknesses. I thought, okay, Oklahoma, if they beat Alabama, they may do it, but what they won't do is they won't do it by stretching Alabama's defense laterally, using speed, doing things that Auburn and A&M did against them. I know they won't let themselves be beat that way because they know that's their known weakness. I was surprised that Oklahoma was still able to go out and be able to do it. I'm not shocked that Oklahoma tried it because if you watch the film, you see that's what you're supposed to do. That's the way to attack them, especially if you have nothing to lose like OU. I'm just disappointed that Alabama allowed themselves to be beat that way when they know that's the scouting report on them.
All right, let's go to the phones real quickly. We got Old School Baller on the line. What's going on, man?
I just like to reflect a little bit on what I saw last night. Just an opinion, of course, nothing more. But, here's the way I look at it. Good quarterbacks get in zones, and turnovers happen. Every football has them. And but what I was really disappointed in Alabama last night was their offensive line. I mean, they got whipped. They had, as far as I'm concerned, Alabama's offensive line is as good as anybody's. Probably, better than anything in college football. And they got whipped last night. And, that could have been corrected. I did not see that addressed. They didn't make any changes all night long. They just basically got whipped. And also Kirby Smart. Everybody's blaming him, but I'm telling you guys, these high-powered, fast offenses, spread offenses, you just can't defeat. You can't prepare for those anymore. That's the way football is changed into. It's no longer a defensive game. It's simply just outscoring your opponent, whatever it takes. And the days of the old smash-mouth defensive football games that mean something are over with. And I was impressed with that young quarterback. I thought he did extremely well. But, McCarron did not. He hadn't faced that rush like he had all year. You could see a little bit of panic in his eyes. He was blaming other people. And he hadn't experienced a situation like he was in last night. And I don't know. I mean, I think OU played over their head just a little bit. Yep. But I don't know. I hadn't followed OU all this year much. But and also, guys, Alton Tenpenny, he just was come back to Arkansas.
Yes,
unless, barring some injuries to what I saw on the field last night, he ain't gonna get in there.
No, you're right.
That's all I got to say, guys. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. Old School Baller brought up some good points, Well, and I want to have you address one of them here in a minute. I said before the show, and I tried to avoid doing this because I really don't. I mean, I'll do it on Twitter some, and I try not to attack college athletes because these guys are young guys at 19 to 22 years old. But Quanjo got his butt whipped last night, just all over the place. And that's part of the game plan that I talked about earlier, that, Alabama can just run it down your throat. And I wondered why they didn't do it more often, because they didn't have any trouble. 8 carries for 100 yards for Henry. So I wondered why they didn't do it more often. But on the flip side, Oklahoma, knowing, okay, Quanjo is a mountain of a man. You're not going to go up against him you don't have anybody who can go up against him one-on-one and physically in a powerful matchup win.
Right.
So we're going to put Stryker out there who can run, just right by him. And he's not even going to try to go up against him man-to-man. He doesn't even want to get touched. He just wants to run. And it caused so much trouble in the passing game for Alabama. I know that it doesn't look like it when you look at the stats, but 2 interceptions and a fumble, 3 turnovers will lose you a game a lot of times. He just absolutely dominated Cyrus Quanjo last night. And as you made a point, I don't watch the offensive line as often. I can see when a guy's getting beat, but I can't really see why or how to fix it. But you saw something that you would correct.
Yeah, that's the life of an offensive lineman. When you're doing your job, nobody notices it, but the one time you mess up, the world sees it. Kind of like an official. But yeah, Mark, I looked at Quanjo, and really this was mainly on the last play, the sack fumble. Quanjo, and again, different offensive line coaches teach different techniques. So obviously, maybe he was executing the technique in which he was taught. But if I have my tackles in a known passing situation, I like for him to get a little bit more depth. And I'm not going to get too far into it, but if you watch Quanjo on that play, he takes a baby step back, he gets a little bit of depth, but then he tries to engage the pass rusher and sort of engage him along the line of scrimmage. I would have liked to have seen him gain more depth and deal with him with a little bit deeper, more room, where it's harder to blow by him, but that's just a technique issue. But Mark, as a coach, normally my job is to look at things more on a micro level, and whereas fans and such may look at things more on a macro level, which that's fine. We all have our jobs, but I will make this macro point and macro perspective, and it's about game flow. The game flow was against Alabama all night, and here's what I mean by that. Because it was a high-scoring game, up-tempo, Alabama had to play outside of themselves offensively. They had to start slinging around the yard like they were the second coming of Mike Leach's Texas Tech teams. That's not what they wanted to do. But when you get a game in which your defense is giving up points quickly, you're ineffective on offense to a certain degree, although they put up a lot of yards. When you get into a high-flowing, multi-possession, up-tempo game, you end up playing outside of the smash-mouth physical style. Alabama does have a very good passing game, but it's only a very good passing game when they want to pass. Last night, they felt they had to pass a lot, and ultimately it got exposed.
Old school baller made a point, and Jason Kilbert and I talked about this yesterday. LT Tenpenny, he's going to be buried on the depth chart. Would you say he was third or fourth running back?
He was the third best running back in last year's Alabama class alone. Not third best in the country.
And he was a 5-star.
5-star, third best running back in Alabama's class alone.
And does that even count in Henry? Because you said he was an athlete. Did you put him in there with the running backs?
No, Henry was not. They had 2 other guys who we've never heard of rated ahead of Tenpenny.
Kamara and
a kid named Jones, I believe.
And then they also have Drake is a redshirt. Is he a redshirt freshman?
Drake, I'm not sure. I don't think Drake was in that class last year, so he may be a red shirt.
So they've got at least 3 running backs ahead of LT Tenpenny. Rumors are he's seeing the writing on the wall, and he saw Henry last night, and he's thinking, I need to go back to Arkansas. That's the rumor. I hope it's true. God, I hope it's true, because even if he comes back and he applies for immediate eligibility and he gets it, which he'd have to have a sick grandma or something crazy like that, and it's happened before. Yeah. What's his name? Came from USC back here, Roger Green.
Yeah.
He got it because he had a sick grandma in Little Rock, LT Tenpenny from North Little Rock. He might get it. If he does, you've got a stable of backs. Next year you can move Corliss Marshall back to safety, and you've still got Jonathan Williams, Alex Collins, and then LT Tenpenny. That'd be a pretty good little combo there. If not, you look at the way it sets up for the next few years. You've got Jonathan Williams next year as a junior, Collins as a sophomore, and a redshirt freshman, well, he'd be a sophomore, redshirt sophomore, Altie Tenpenny for the next year when you'd come out and you'd have Jonathan Williams as a senior, Alex Collins as a sophomore or as a junior, and Altie Tenpenny a year behind as a redshirt sophomore. So you would have a stable of backs for at least 3 more years where you could just replenish, and then you go recruit guys on top of that. And I don't feel like Brett Bielema with his style is going to have problems getting good running backs to come in, especially with the offensive line recruits and the way they've done that. But Altie Tenpenny coming back to Arkansas, I think would work best for both sides. You know, he's probably not going to get to play a whole lot at Alabama, and Arkansas could use him in a couple years anyway. So I think it'd be a good idea for him to come back. Let's move on real quickly because we've got to hit a break. I do want to hit some more Arkansas Razorback stuff here in a little bit because I know that Alabama talk sort of came back around to Arkansas as it normally does. But at our Peters Family Living local sports look real quickly, need to make mention that the Clarksville Panthers playing in the Barry Pruitt Hot Springs, the Barry Pruitt Hurricane Classic in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Got a 56-35 win last night over Brooklyn, the 4A school. Deontay Woodbridge, 18 points. I heard one of my kids said he nearly broke the goal with one of his dunks. So he's a very exciting player to watch there for Clarksville. They take on Osceola tonight at 6:30, and the Pottsville Apaches fell to Little Rock Episcopal last night, a very talented team in Little Rock. And they've got Bauxite tonight in a game that's a makeup game from a couple of weeks ago where Bauxite had to cancel right at the beginning of this Christmas break. So we've got plenty of high school basketball going on, plenty of stuff that's happening in the next couple of weeks. I guess the biggest day in basketball in the next couple of weeks is the 7th. That's next Tuesday, where you're going to have all these teams getting back into action after the break and starting the conference slate. So that's our Peters Family Living local sports look. I'll be at Pottsville tonight to watch the Apaches take on Bauxite. And again, Clarksville plays Osceola tonight at 6:30 in the Hurricane Classic. If you're making that trip, you have to get on the road here in just a little bit. Got some Hog Talk, got some NFL, and plenty more on the Sports Blitz right after this.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peters Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peters Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville. Online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
KRK4 today.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russell and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
We got a couple more college football topics to touch on here today on the Sports Blitz. We thank you for joining us on this Friday. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Matty Lassiter, who eventually may turn on his microphone, and it's his New Year's resolution to talk every once in a while on the show. He's so passionate and opinionated in the pre-show prep, and then he never says anything during the show. So we'll have to.
He's got his dog running around.
We'll have to break him of that on the show sometime this year. We thank you for joining us today on this Friday episode of the Sports Blitz. Like we said, we've got a lot of college topics left to hit, but let's move real quickly to the NFL. As we made mention on Wednesday that Bill O'Brien took the head coaching job at the Houston Texans, has left Penn State. They paid that $6-some million buyout to get him out of his contract, and now he's going to take the job with the Houston Texans. They're going to get the first pick in the draft. That's another conversation for another day. Who do you take? After watching Johnny Manziel the other day, it'd be hard not to look at him number one overall there in Houston, knowing you've got a good defense. But I saw somebody point out, the other day that you've got J.J. Watt, and if you go get Jadeveon Clowney and put him next to him, my God.
It may not matter who's playing quarterback at that point.
Especially if you put them on opposite sides. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Johnny Manziel is, I agree from a talent standpoint, and what I would do personally, I wouldn't mind taking Johnny Manziel number one. But I look at the situation. That's the only reason I don't think it would happen. Bill O'Brien, he is such a stickler for detail as far as the quarterback position. He's one of the best quarterback coaches in the business right now. I don't know if he would embrace all that Johnny Manziel brings to the table. He'd probably be pulling his hair out, and he probably doesn't have much hair, but throwing his hat up in the air and celebrating and mad 1 minute. I just don't know if Johnny brings that, this is how it's done, this is what we do, we don't deviate from it whatsoever. But if it weren't for that, though, if I were Houston, I were Bill O'Brien, I would have no problem taking Johnny Manziel because I think he can play in the NFL.
Found out here, Rachel Nichols tweeted that the Colts and the Packers both sold out their games. Was a big wonder there for a couple of days whether or not they were going to be blacked out locally because they didn't have their tickets all sold. So that was a crazy thought that Green Bay, after 200 and some odd consecutive sellouts, I know it's supposed to be really cold, and from what I just saw earlier on a Twitter post, it's possibly going to be colder than the Ice Bowl. Mm-hmm. I've got a football from that game, by the way.
Really?
My dad, he got it in some sort of like silent auction or something, or he won it. No, it was a door prize that he won somewhere, and it's signed. Now the signatures have sort of started to fade, but you could at one point see the signatures of the Cowboys and some of the Packers. Bart Starr, some of these guys, big name guys. I don't want to say too many names and then not be on the ball, but I'm trying to remember some of the names.
Is on there?
He is on there.
Wow.
And there's a bunch of good names that I knew. Tom Landry was on there. I think Vince Lombardi might have even been on there. I'm not sure. But because it was a long time ago, obviously the 60s, but this game Sunday 4:05 or 4:40 there in Green Bay is supposed to be at least possibly colder than the Ice Bowl.
Yeah, I've been hearing maybe -5 or wind chill of a -14, and it just reminds me of having to go back to Minnesota. Right now, I talked to some people the other night. They're like, yeah, it's not bad here. It's it's -30. That's what it was a few nights ago, and I said, you know what? I am good down here in Arkansas for a while longer. But, it's going to be really cold. And you think of who that would favor. Green Bay, obviously the home team, but San Francisco, because of their physical style of play, you would think they'd be able to play there. We made our picks the other day. I'm going to still stick with San Francisco. I think it's going to be close. I think Aaron Rodgers does have a chance to pull it out. But I'm going to still go with San Francisco in a very cold game.
San Francisco, Green Bay, 3:40 on Fox Sunday. The other game on Sunday is San Diego at Cincinnati. I told you on Wednesday I had that game half circled for Cincinnati because I wasn't sure. I couldn't just quite go there. And I think Cincinnati will win the game, being as at home. It's a CBS noon game there on Sunday. But San Diego, something about those guys, man. I never have really trusted them. I remember a couple years ago they had the number one offense and number one defense in the league and didn't make the playoffs. But I just can't seem to trust them enough to win a game like that. But they've got all the talent that they need to actually win that game. And then you've got the Saturday games, 3:35 kick between Kansas City and Indianapolis. I've got the Colts winning that game at home, and I think you had Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then the late game on Saturday, 7:10 kick between New Orleans and Philadelphia on the road. Lots being made of the temperature in that game. I've still got New Orleans winning that game despite my better judgment, knowing that New Orleans is a dome team going on the road to a cold atmosphere. It's shaky. It's one of those half-circle games. I've got New Orleans winning because I do feel like that Drew Brees and that offense is just so talented that they'll score enough points to win that game.
Well, I mean, Mark, you know how much, one of my pet peeves, I hate cliches. And I just think New Orleans, I think they're tired of hearing about how they can't play away from home. And, I mean, it has been a factor. The numbers back it up. It's not like it's something that's made up. But yet and still, I think they're tired of hearing about it. I think with those weapons, they're capable. Nick Foles, remember, rookie quarterback, or in terms of experience, he's not a rookie. He played last year. But his first playoff game, Chip Kelly, his first playoff game, the Philadelphia Eagles offense, they're one of those teams that when they're hot, they're hot. And when they're not, they look kind of bad. So we'll see what goes on with them. But you brought up the San Diego Chargers, and I just had to give a shout-out to Ken Wisenhunt. I mean, what he's done with Phillip Rivers this year has been nothing short of amazing. If they had like a Broyles Award for the NFL, Ken Wisenhunt would be up there for me because, remember, Phillip Rivers – a few years ago, back about 5 years ago, was knocking on the door of being elite. Then he took a vacation the last 3 or 4 years. He looked pitiful. Now he's back to being one of the better quarterbacks in all of football. Ken Wisenhunt gets to town this year. I don't think that's a coincidence. So, I got Cincinnati in that game, but I just had to give a shout-out to Ken Wisenhunt, who I think will be a head coach next year.
Well, you're probably right. It looks like he's well on his way to getting back in the game as far as head coaching goes. You had a couple of things that you wanted to mention college football-wise because these games in the NFL, they're going to be great, and we'll have plenty to talk about in recap on Monday, but we've been very honest with you in saying that, man, these are some pretty good games, and they're tough to really predict, and there's just no use in us trying to talk about what we expect from a game like Green Bay and San Francisco when it's looking like it's going to be freezing, and New Orleans at Philadelphia. There's no telling how that, and even San Diego at Cincinnati, there's no telling how the weather's going to impact those games and the outcomes, but we will definitely do a good job of recapping the games on Monday.
Well, Mark, we were talking earlier about the Oklahoma-Alabama game and Alabama's defense and how things are changing. I want to get to that in a second, but we missed a couple of games since we were on the air. Last couple of big games: Rose Bowl, Stanford, Michigan State. Hats off to Coach D'Antonio. A lot of confidence in his team. Never wavered from it. I give them credit for getting it done. The Rose Bowl, Fiesta Bowl. I don't think anybody gave Central Florida a chance. Give Bortles and company credit. George O'Leary, those guys did a great job against the Baylor Bears. But a couple of games we missed, Mark, since we were on the air. Just want to go ahead and mention them. Not a whole lot there, but just wanted to give a shout out.
I told everybody on Wednesday that UCF Baylor game, I was just like, I didn't care. But 52-42,
it was fun.
Is a very fun game, and that Michigan State Stanford game, it was exactly what we thought it was going to be, wasn't it? It was just one of those smash mouth.
Yeah.
The final play for Stanford was a 4th and 1 fullback dive, really, sort of thing. It was just it was one of those, man, why would you run that play? I know what your identity is, and I know you got pride in what you do and who you are, but have a little bit of ingenuity about you and do something a little different. I've heard people talk about just give the quarterback who likes to run a run-pass option there, or at least a run-pitch option, some sort of something that's not just pounded up the middle. I got to give the credit to, I don't know what his number was, but from Michigan State, pulled a Polamalu and just jumped over. And I saw the slow-mo where he just bam, in the air and pushed the guy back, and they didn't get the first down. Michigan State wins without one of their better linebackers.
Yeah, one of their third-team All-American linebacker was suspended. So, I mean, one thing you'll never see out of me, Mark, and I know everybody at home is going to watch Itasca Vikings football this year, but one thing you'll never see from me this year is I don't understand getting foot-to-foot splits, getting 2 or 3 guys in the backfield to bang your head against the wall in that situation. Why can you not pick up a first down in a normal offensive set? Because people don't understand, well, they should. The defense lines up according to how you line up.
Yep.
If you line up foot-to-foot, guess what they're going to do? They're going to squeeze in too. If you line up in a normal set, 2 or 3 receivers, normal splits, guess what they're going to do? Normal splits. You have opportunities to run the ball, but it's almost like this is an intuition. It's like this intuition where, it's inches, 4th and inches, got to get real heavy, got to get real tight, and got to line up in a normal set.
It's showing your manhood. We're going to push you around.
That's what you would. I mean, it sounds like that, but again, I see teams get stopped. Mike Smith last year got stopped twice doing that against New Orleans. You see David Shaw, it's happened to him this time. I get why you would think, short yardage, get heavy, but line up in a normal set. See, the defense, either they're going to account for it and give you a normal running lane, or if they still want to bunch up, even though you're in a normal set, then something like a toss play is going to be wide open. Philosophically, it's not something I've ever believed in, Mark. But, one thing I do want to look at is style of play. It's something that we were going to talk about and how it's changing. We talked about Alabama and, what's wrong with their defense. This is not Nick Saban's defense. What's the problem here? We know teams are spreading it out. We had our caller point out how, that's the way things are going now. Spread offense, up tempo. And I just think that we're at a time where defensively you're going to have to get more speed on the field. I think we're at the point where Alabama's not playing in the 1980s. Big physical linebackers, lumbering, run-fitting defensive ends. You got to be able to run. You got to have at least 2 linebackers. Your Will and Sam need to be able to cover and run. You got to have pass rushers. Alabama right now, they're built to play in a phone booth. I think they're going to have to get some more speed. They're going to have to go, 215, 220 at outside linebacker, 235 on the defensive line because teams, Auburn, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, these teams are spreading out. Missouri, they're going up tempo. Alabama's got to match that from a personnel standpoint. I was talking about before the show, LSU, I don't think LSU would have had as much trouble with Oklahoma last night. Not because LSU's better coached. I think Nick Saban does a great job, Kirby Smart, but just because of their personnel. Look what LSU's done. Played Oregon a couple of years ago. Shut them down. Johnny Manziel twice, 2 years in a row. Shut them down. Gus Malzahn's Auburn team. Who's the only team he lost to this year? LSU. It's not because LSU's better coach. It's because they have more lateral speed. You look at Florida last year, who shut down Johnny Manziel. Speed, speed, speed. That's where we're at.
And it's a balance of speed and power because in LSU, these guys aren't tiny.
Exactly.
I think a lot of it comes – because I don't think Alabama's not recruiting speed. I think a lot of it will come down to the way they're coached up, the way their strength coach builds them. They're Courtney Upshaw and Dante Hightower and these guys who are 6'5", 250 linebackers, and it's just ridiculous how big those guys were, and they were fast, but they were built to just punish people. And like you said, especially the way the NFL's going to more of a wide open passing league, Alabama has been doing what they've done with a great balance of speed to power. They've got the biggest guys and the fastest guys on their team for the most part, but like you said, these teams that are just spread, there are a couple guys like Saunders, dude, they said he was like 150 pounds. You get your hands on him and it's all over. But that's the problem. He's so fast, and you get him out in space, and how big and strong you are doesn't matter. Quanjo, doesn't matter how big and strong you are when you can't touch me as a defensive end, and I'm just lower my shoulder getting around you. So I think Nick Saban and his strength staff will understand. Okay, well let's maybe put this guy. We can put 40 pounds on him, but let's put 20 pounds on him, and let's bulk him up, but not sacrifice speed. And they'll adjust that formula a little bit to get back to where they they can take advantage of everything that they need to do offensively and defensively in an evolving game. And it is an evolving game. I see people saying, I've seen Facebook posts and tweets about how the SEC is going to dominate forever. I don't know about that. Things go in cycles.
Right.
And just like there was a cycle where it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and then it's a cycle to spread it out and throw it all over the place. Things are going to come back around eventually to where pro-style offense is the way it's going to go. And then in the NFL, some of the rule changes will come around to help the defense and sort of even things up. Things are going to go in cycles. I don't believe that there's ever just been one clear-cut, this is the way it is, because Oklahoma back in the 70s and 80s, that nobody could stop that wishbone when people came around. Auburn right now, it's just like, how do you stop this hurry up, no huddle with the run game the way it is and the passing game, just able to take advantage of you. Eventually somebody's going to figure it out, and the game's going to continue to evolve and change.
No, you're absolutely right, Mark. And let's be clear, because I've heard some whispers. Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, they didn't forget how to coach. Alabama, from a structural standpoint, from a play calling standpoint, from an alignment standpoint, were right on point. They just couldn't make the plays in space. They couldn't get after the quarterback. And again, we talked about Nick Saban, his motivation, wanting to be there. I think the fire has been relit. The gauntlet has been thrown down. The challenge has been laid down. Nick Saban has something now to chase. He has something to pursue, and that's shutting down these up-tempo spread offenses, and I wouldn't bet against him. I wouldn't.
We're looking at the University of Texas, too, while we're about ready to go to break here real quickly. I've seen that the University of Texas has reportedly been turned down by several different people. Jim Mora, the UCLA head coach, has been the latest to publicly, so it's been reported. Obviously, we've been here on the show, so I haven't been able to see, but Twitter is saying that he has turned down the opportunity to coach Texas. Art Briles said he is honored to be Baylor's head coach, and he will not take the Texas job. Let's see, here's at least 3 people they say that there at least 5 people have turned down the job. Trying to see who else it is. It looks like the front runner, though, is going to be Charlie Strong from Louisville. There's no telling if that's who they'll go after, if they may talk Nick Saban in, dump a truckload of money in his front yard and see what he has to say. But it looks like Texas is down to. I know that Charlie Strong's not their first option.
Yeah, look, well, I think Texas is the best job in football. I stick by that. I'm just wondering now, Texas, what are you putting on the table financially? I mean, if you're trying to get away with $4 or $5 million, then yeah, people are going to turn you down because they're making good money where they're at. Yeah, they're making a little bit more money with $4 and $5 million, but you're Texas.
It's going to have to be over 7.
Yeah, people are expecting you to come out with 7, 8. I mean, come on, you're Texas. I guarantee all those names you listed, they're going to get interested again really quick. Yep. You throw that number out there, but if you're trying to get cheap with $4 and $5 million, come on, Texas.
Well, I've seen here one person tweeted that Malzahn has turned the job down, Gus Malzahn, Auburn, and now Sports Illustrated is tweeting that Gus Malzahn has told friends privately that Texas is his dream job.
I heard that.
So,
yeah.
and that I've heard that more than once. So, Pete Thamel is tweeting that if Texas calls as a headline, Gus Malzahn should jump at chance to leave Auburn. Chances are he's either going to have a national championship game or a national championship under his belt, another one. He was offensive coordinator for the first one a couple of years ago, or he's going to have lost in the national championship game and accomplished quite a bit there at Auburn, and then have the opportunity to go to Texas. So if they come calling and they offer the right amount of money, it's going to be hard for Gus Malzahn to say no.
You said that right. I mean, I think a lot of these coaches are still in place, so we'll see how it goes. I still think Texas will get their guy, it just may cost more money.
If you had the choice between Saban, Malzahn, and Charlie Strong, who do you pick?
Oof.
Malzahn's a lot younger than Saban.
That's probably why I'll go with Gus Malzahn, because I think Gus Malzahn eventually will be the best coach in the country when Saban kind of gets way out of his prime and retired. So I'll just take the guy I think will be the best in the country.
That says a whole lot. I don't know that we could have said that earlier this year even. So we got a little bit of time left on the Sports Blitz right after this break. Got to talk about Rafe Peavy. Had a good game last night in the Under Armour All-American game.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peter's Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peter's Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville. Online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
KRK4 today.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
Will Randy Shannon be the next defensive coordinator at, let's fill in the blank. Lots of folks asking about the Arkansas linebackers coach. Lots of us were excited when Arkansas got Randy Shannon as the linebackers coach, wondered what in the world happened.
Yeah.
He was, I guess at TCU, he was the linebackers coach, but he went from Miami head football coach to TCU linebackers coach to Arkansas linebackers coach, and now there was a lot of talk about whether or not he would take the Oregon job. Apparently he's not going to do that. And then some more talk that Chris Ash would go to Tampa Bay. Now that's apparently been shot down too. So I think it might have been a little wishful thinking from Arkansas fans hoping to keep Randy Shannon and saying, all right, Chris Ash, go ahead and go to Tampa Bay. We'll just promote Randy Shannon to defensive coordinator, or maybe even go get Orgeron as a defensive coordinator and have the best recruiter in the country on your squad. So I think it was a little wishful thinking, but it looks like Randy Shannon, at least right now, is not on anybody else's radar.
He's not. Yeah, by the way, got to give a quick congrats to Lovey back in the league with Tampa Bay. I think he'll do a good job. But, Arkansas staff, you look at Randy Shannon now, he's been linked to some jobs. We talk about Oregon. One thing I was telling somebody yesterday is what you don't want to happen is, Chris Ash were to go somewhere and then Randy Shannon both go somewhere as well before you could promote Randy Shannon. But I don't think that'll happen. Arkansas staff looks to be intact. And, you look at this Razorback defense, Mark, and their recruiting. I know we're going to talk about Rafe Peavy, but trying to up the ante. Randy Shannon in Florida ties. You don't have Charlie Partridge anymore down there in Florida, so you need somebody with those ties. I think it's important to keep him on staff, and I think he will. If you go to Oregon, it's almost like killing your career. I mean, what are you going to do as a defensive coordinator at Oregon? I mean, you're going to give up 27 a game and then make excuses about, well, we're on the field a lot. That's why teams score 27, 30 points. I mean, they'll pay him the money, and I guess if that's what you want, fine. But, other than that, I can't really see it.
Well, that's a little bit of hog news for you. We want to look real quickly at a couple of other things. We know the basketball team taking on UT San Antonio tomorrow, 7 o'clock, and then the next game will be a conference matchup at Texas A&M, 8 o'clock on the next Saturday. So, is it the next Saturday that the Hogs play basketball against A&M? I think that's right.
Texas San Antonio.
Texas San Antonio tomorrow at 7 o'clock at Bud Walton Arena, and then the next game would be on the 8th. So I guess that's Wednesday against Texas A&M on the road. So we've got some basketball action coming up in the next week or so. But let's continue real quickly at football because Rafe Peavy, Arkansas quarterback commit, one that I've talked a little bit about in the past and just had some reservations about. Played in the Under Armour All-American game yesterday. Looked really, really good. Jason sent me some stats here from watching some of the game. He said Peavy went 7 of 11, 73 yards and a touchdown. I watched 1.5 drives of his. I didn't get to see the touchdown pass, but I watched a little bit of that drive, and I watched the drive before. where he led, the drive after, I guess, where he led a touchdown, or he led a drive, got him all the way down the field, and they missed a field goal. But he looked really, really good, really poised, had some pocket presence about him, threw a good ball, and he led his team down. He was the best quarterback, in my opinion, of the team that I saw there for his, I guess he was on Team Nitro, named after an American gladiator. But Rafe Peavy, he sort of calmed me down a little bit as far as not knowing how he will play against good competition, and it leads me to believe that next year's quarterback competition is going to be a good one at Arkansas.
Well, here's what I believe. I think Rafe Peavy is going to step foot on campus next year as the most talented quarterback on campus. Now, whether or not that translates into him being the best option and he should start is another thing, because the other guys do have experience in the system and all that thing. But I think just from a talent standpoint, I think Rafe Peavy hands down is the guy. The question is, he is a true freshman. Will he be ready to play? If he shows the mental maturity, I think he ends up being the guy based on what we've seen this year from Arkansas at the quarterback position. But again, it's something we'll have to wait and see. He has to mature mentally. If you put him out there too early, it could be a bad thing. Maybe you go with Brandon or Austin early on until Ray figures some things out. But if he does in fall camp, wouldn't surprise me if he were the guy.
Well, Rafe Peavy's doing another good thing, and that's recruiting. He is doing a heck of a job recruiting guys for the University of Arkansas. Hey, come play with me. We're going to do some great things. He's pulling a Jonathan Williams, really. He was a guy who everybody loved. Before he even stepped foot on campus, everybody loved Jonathan Williams because he was doing such a good job of saying, hey, come on. And not saying that he got all the guys to come play there, but he got some guys to at least consider Arkansas, and he did a really good job of being a good representative for the university before he even stepped foot on campus. It's like Vin Ascalise, remember the dude, the linebacker? Yeah. He didn't even make it from New Jersey. Didn't even make it to the team, but he was doing some recruiting for Arkansas. Well, he loved him some Arkansas, and he never even made it to the team. But Rafe Peavy doing a good job of that. And we've got about a month. Let me see when it's the first Tuesday in February normally when signing day is, but that'll be the 4th of February when is normally National Signing Day. So you've got about a month for PV and the coaching staff to get after some of these players, and they've got some big names. I know it's quite ambitious to think that they get some of these guys who are, it's either Alabama or Arkansas. Well, I wonder which school they're going to go to. But there are some of these guys who, you get an Alex Collins, you get another guy like they're after a guy named Malachi Dupree, #1 wide receiver in the country.
Right.
He and PV played on the same team this week, and he was just recruiting with Adam. You get a guy like that, and it can change things real quickly.
Well, if you're Arkansas, you're going to have to start recruiting through the light of sort of what we talked about with Alti Tenpenny. It's just sort of saying, look, yeah, you're talented. Yeah, you may be able to play, but just look, there are so many guys like you on these Alabamas of the world who aren't playing. At Arkansas, you're going to be able to come in and play, and you're not just going to be playing for a bad team, because we're going to get quite a few of your types of players, and we're going to build something special. You're going to not only be on a winning team like you would be at Alabama, you're going to be a leading contributor on a winning team. I think that's what Arkansas has to sell right now. I think they can sell that. It's going to help them in recruiting.
And speaking of recruiting, this isn't necessarily recruiting. He's a guy you'll recognize from recruiting. Alti Tenpenny, we talked about him a little earlier, possibly wanting to transfer back to Arkansas. Jason tweeted, actually he texted me here just a minute ago, a screenshot of Alti Tenpenny's Twitter, and we can take this with a grain of salt because a 19-year-old kid tweeting crazy stuff every once in a while, it's to be expected, but he said, my next move is either going to make me or break me. So we don't know whether he's going to make a transition back to the University of Arkansas in his home state, but we can only hope that he does that. But apparently he was retweeting some Arkansas fans and sort of doing a good job of leading people to believe that he was going to come back to the University of Arkansas. So we can hold our breath and hope that Alti Tenpenny makes the decision to come back to Arkansas. I think that would be a big deal for the University of Arkansas to have a 5-star state player who came back. It's sort of like Broderick Green a couple years ago in that, he was a big-time guy. I mean, you go to USC, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And he's a 5-star guy, and then to come back to Arkansas, it's got to help them recruiting-wise to say, look, this guy knew his best chance to win at a high level and get to play was to come to Arkansas. All these first-team all freshman, all American team guys. They're recruiting with that emphasis now. Hey, come over here. You can be all American freshman team. So
yeah,
it's doing some good there in recruiting.
Yeah, if he does make that decision, I think it'll be good for Arkansas. But like you said, you just don't know what a 19-year-old. It's hard to read into what these tweets say. Mark, before we get out of here, I have to apologize to the city of Chicago because the Bears did sign Jay Cutler to that 7-year extension. Bears fans, I'm sorry. All you can do is hope Mark Trestman and his great quarterback knowledge can help Jay Cutler, because other than that, I don't get a 7-year deal for Cutler. I don't understand.
Maybe by Monday we'll have Texas a new head football coach and the dominoes can start rolling. Maybe by Monday the Miami Heat can figure out how to guard a guy like Steph Curry, who had 36 points last night in a win. But we've got plenty of stuff that we'll have to hit on Monday. The Hurricane Classic basketball going on in Jonesboro. Clarksville plays Osceola tonight, 6:30. Pottsville playing Bauxite at home tonight in basketball. Plenty of other basketball action as the Hogs take on UT San Antonio tomorrow. So we'll be back on Monday to recap the NFL weekend that was. Lots of high school football and plenty more. Thank you for joining us on this Friday. For Weldon and Maddie, I'm Mark saying so long, and we'll see you at 11 o'clock on Monday.